So here is an alternator of a Mazda DY engine. This is a 1500cc engine, and as you can see, this alternator here, from this inscription here, it's written for Moko, and this is when Mazda had this partnership with Ford, and you can see the specifications here are 12 volts and 90 amperes. Okay, so I have already taken the alternator apart so that we can learn how this gadget works. Now, on the outside, first of all, we have the engine mounting here, and then we have another engine mounting here, usually positioned this way. Okay, this is actually how it mounts on the vehicle, this way, because we have one long bolt that goes from here through the engine chassis and then bolts onto these threads here. Then now we have the second mounting for the engine, which is at this point. Now, this is where the battery terminals connect. There's usually a connector that fits into this place, and this part here is the positive terminal, of course, for the alternator. Now, the first steps to removing the alternator: number one, you have to remove the connections, both here and here. Then remove the accessory belt, which runs on this point, and then remove the alternator from the mountings, from the respective mountings. Maneuver your way through the engine and get the alternator out. Now, how will you know that your alternator is failing? Number one, there will be an dashboard light on your car with the battery symbol in it in red. Now, all symbols in red tells you that you need to address the issue before proceeding with the journey. And of course, the symbols in yellow will give you a bit of time to sort it out. But this one will be in red. Number two, the vehicle's electrical systems will go out. All the electrical systems, from the major systems like the fuel pump to wipers to headlights. Number three, you will smell a funny burning smell coming from this gadget. Of course, you'll get that smell from the engine bay. And number four, when this thing fails, it produces a funny, coarse, weird noise. So after getting alternator out and getting all the connections and the accessory belt out, we have 4 screws that hold this alternator in place. I have gotten them out so that we have an easy time with the video. There is one that are fixed. There are 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you come here and get this one out. Now, after getting all those bolts out, give your alternator a light tap. As you go around, just give it a light tap as you go around. Just give it a light tap with a hammer. Just being careful not to damage the parts. Okay. And there we go. And it's out. And now you have these 2 parts of the alternator. Now, let us describe each with its function. This is what is connected to the accessory belt, and this is what goes around and round. And as you can see, inside here, we have these iron blocks, and inside here is a copper winding. This is called the rotor, and this one goes around inside here, inside these coils, which is called the stator. Okay, so this is the rotor because it's the one that rotates, and this one is held stationary. Now, the working principle is very simple. The battery on the car connects to this terminal here. You know, the voltage in the battery is about 12 volts to about 13 volts. So you have the positive and the terminal here, positive and negative terminal. This one comes all the way to these 2 brushes, both for positive and negative. Now these two brushes will connect to this rotor through these copper areas. And then these copper areas, one, you can see the terminal is here, and the other terminal is here. And these two will supply these copper windings with DC power. Okay? When these coils are supplied with power and it is surrounded by a cast iron block, it will generate a magnetic effect. Okay? So when the engine rotates and it's rotating this magnetic effect across these copper windings, then you have an AC current being produced. So it's simple. The battery provides the power to these copper windings in the rotor, surrounded by the cast iron blocks, produce a magnetic current. When the magnetic current is rotated and cuts across these copper windings, then you have an AC current being generated. This AC current will come through these three connections that you can see inside here. Okay, I think now the light is much better. These three connections inside here. Now, when this current is received through these three connections, it will go through this component inside here, which is an electrical component that will convert this AC into a DC component through diodes that are inside here and through a rectifier, so that through a rectifier and a regulator, so that we don't produce an excess of electrical current. Remember, the current that is being produced by the rotation of this rotor will be dependent on the speed. So we don't want a situation whereby when the car is revving high, we're also generating very high current, because this high current, because it goes back to the battery for charging and it runs the electrical components, can damage the electrical components. So inside here, we have a rectifier and a voltage regulator. Now, this regulator will convert the AC into DC, and it will come out through this positive terminal, and the whole casing is the negative terminal, which is attached to the car. Okay, so that is the simple working principle of an alternator. Now, common failure points. Common failure points are, number one, these brushes over time, because they are rotating inside these copper windings. These brushes, because they are rotating inside these copper windings, they might wear off and reach a point where they are no longer in contact with these copper areas. And as you can see, these brushes are spring loaded, so that they always maintain a constant. They're always in constant in touch with these copper areas. So over time, because of the rotation, these copper brushes will wear out and can lose contact, and the alternator will start failing. Number two, these electrical components inside here can fail, the diode can fail, and the rectifier can fail. So I tried to repair this alternator with no success, because I realized that this whole electrical component replacements are not available. So I had to replace the whole alternator. And I learned a few things. That, number one, the voltage that is being produced by this alternator, when the alternator is working, get a multimeter, and one probe will be in the negative, which is the car's chassis, and the other probe will be in the positive. Now, when the alternator is running and the car is running, you should get about 13.5 to 14 volts. But on this particular unit, I was getting 11.9 volts, which was actually the voltage in the car's battery. So you should get about 13.5 to 14 volts and not greater than 15, because if you're getting greater than 15, then it means that we are having an overcharge being allowed by the voltage regulator here, and that can damage the car's electrical components. Number two, I also learned that apart from the brushes wearing off, there are lots of electrical components here that can wear off, and some of them cannot even be replaced. Okay, and I also learned that the car's electrical systems are being powered by the alternator and not the battery, because the car actually works in a funny manner. The battery will be responsible for starting the car, but once the RPMs are already, once the engine starts cranking and this rotor is rotating, all the electrical needs of the car shift to the alternator. it's no longer the battery. So the battery is being used by the car to start up, and the starter consumes a lot of power from the battery. But once the car is running, the alternator takes over to run the electrical components in the car and to charge the same battery that started the car. So it is advisable that you do all your electrical needs of the car while the car is running, you know, pulling up the windows, folding the side mirrors, running the stereo, all those things, all those workloads, and not to do it to the battery, because it can actually drain the battery so fast when the car is stationary. Okay, so that has been a short video just for the basics of how the alternator works. I hope you've learned something from this video, and I will kindly and humbly ask you to subscribe and to like the video. Cheers.